Good morning, and welcome to the Atwood Day Assembly, themed Democracy, Moving Forward, Looking Toward a New Day. My name is Troy Adams, and I proudly serve as the director of the Atwood Institute for Race, Education, and the Democratic Idea. Allow me to first acknowledge Regent and Chairwoman, Dr. Elaine Ferris, and members of the Board of Regents. 18th President M. Christopher Brown II, and founder of the Atwood Institute for Race, Education, and the Democratic Idea. Provost Yates, members of the Atwood Advisory Committee, Miss and Mr. Kentucky State University, students, faculty, staff, viewers, and participants, welcome. Today, we celebrate and honor the legacy of Dr. Rufus Ballard Atwood, Kentucky State's longest-serving president. Atwood grew up in the rural town of Hickman, Kentucky, on a bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. Educationally, Atwood was a product of the Kentucky schools, blanketed in a tapestry of segregation and social disharmony. At 17, Atwood would travel to Nashville, Tennessee, where he began his post-secondary educational journey, enrolling in Fisk University in 1915. Having spent only 2 years at Fisk University, his plans were altered by World War I. Atwood enlisted and was subsequently sent to France, joining the all-black 92nd Division. Because of Atwood's courage under fire, he was awarded a Bronze Star. Atwood returned to Fisk University to finish his undergraduate studies and would obtain a bachelor's degree in biological science. Professionally, Atwood was offered professorships at Prairie View State Normal and Industrial College, now named Prairie View A&M University, and Kansas Vocational College in Topeka, Kansas. He worked there briefly, but accepted the Prairie View professorship at Summer's End in 1929. Atwood served as the director of the Agricultural Department at Prairie View, where his work did not go unnoticed. He was courted to serve as the 9th president of Kentucky State College for Colored Persons. Atwood was just 32 years of age. Atwood heroically and with distinction served Kentucky State through 3 name changes, from Kentucky State Industrial College for Colored Persons to Kentucky State College for Negroes to Kentucky State College. Atwood is credited with growing the campus's infrastructure, staving off the 1930s and the Great Depression, and going toe-to-toe against segregation and institutional racism. Indeed, Atwood was a servant and man of service. About today's program, the Atwood Institute's Advisory Committee met nearly 6 months ago, and 3 women, Ms. Dantrea Hampton, Ms. Sharon McGee, and Ms. Sheila Stuckey, recommended that the theme for our assembly today would be democracy moving forward, looking toward a new day. They did not know it would be a prophetic theme. Fast forward to January 6, 2021, our democracy was assaulted as angry insurrectionists stormed into the United States Capitol. They echoed false claims of election fraud and other absurdities. Smith, in his biography titled A Black Educator in the Segregated South, wrote about Atwood, Atwood believed in service to others, and he was an interracial diplomat. In the wake of insurgency, I think Atwood would say to our students, your commitment to service does not end with the election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Atwood would encourage our students not to become complacent and to challenge threats to our democracy, including voter suppression, gerrymandering, and initiatives to redraw voting maps to advantage certain political parties. And as former governor of Massachusetts, Devil Patrick, instructs us, the greatest threat to our democracy is inaction. At this time, we will have a performance by Zanaya Totweiler.
Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Let your light shine around this world. Oh, sister, won't you hold out your light? Oh, sister, won't you hold out your light? Oh, sister, won't you hold out your light? Let your light shine around this world. Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Let your light shine around this world. Oh, brother, won't you hold out your light? Oh, brother, won't you hold out your light? Oh, brother, won't you hold out your light? Let your light shine around this world. Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Hold out your light, ye heaven-bound soldiers. Let your light shine around this world. Oh, Christian, won't you hold out your light? Oh, Christian, won't you hold out your light? Oh, sister, oh, brother, won't you hold out your light? Let your light shine around this world.
At this time, I would like to introduce 18th President M. Christopher Brown II and founder of the Atwood Institute for Race, Education, and the Democratic Idea.
Good morning. For now nearly 135 years, Kentucky State University has been educating students to make a difference in the world. Our primary focus has been attracting and educating students and having a supportive staff of a diverse background to deliver on our ideals and commitment. When I arrived in May of 2017, I began the conceptualization of the Atwood Institute for Race, Education, and the Democratic Ideal. On June 29, 2017, less than 45 days after my arrival, the Board of Regents approved the Institute to engage multiple constituencies across the landscape to address issues of poverty, underachievement, and even 3 years prescient to the death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Marbury, and Breonna Taylor, the unarmed civilian deaths at the hands of police officers. This institute was designed to detect, to dialogue, and to discover ways to address these 3 issues: race, education, and democracy. The Institute was set up to have scholarly research, interdisciplinary study, discourse and debate, brown bag lectures, working group sessions, as well as symposiums and assemblies to attract support from community institutions to work collaboratively to create for us a better world. It was, in fact, Cornel West who said, and I quote, "Our ideals of freedom, democracy, and quality must be invoked to invigorate all of us, especially the landless, propertyless, and the luckless." It is our hope that today's assembly will remind each of us to explore the issues of race, education, and democracy, how our institutions are affected, how we are individually impacted, and how we can work collectively to create a better world. Our first director, Ms. Crystal DeGregory, and now our new director, Mr. Troy Adams, continues our work to make sure that we, one, honor the legacy of our institution's longest-serving president, a Kentucky native, an academician, and a World War I veteran, Mr. Rufus Ballard Atwood, as well as to advance the work that Kentucky State University has set out to do to engage the citizens, our Commonwealth, and our country. We hope that you will enjoy the remainder of today's assembly. Dr. Adams will come to direct us for the rest of the program. Let me say, if Dr. Atwood shows up today, we all have a problem. Let's receive Troy Adams at this time.
Thank you, President Brown. And at this time, I would like to welcome two students to the lectern to welcome the student body. Thank you.
Greetings, Kentucky State University. I am Asia Scott, SGA's first Executive Vice President.
And I am Corey Jones Jr., SGA's Secretary. And on behalf of the 87th Student Government Association, we would like to share a warm welcome to you all today.
Today's assembly is dedicated to Rufus B. Atwood, a pioneer, a servant, and a leader.
Serving as Kentucky State University's 9th and longest serving president, it is imperative that we highlight the selfless dedication that Rufus B. Atwood exhibited.
During Atwood's tenure, he exemplified what onward, upward, and forward truly means.
From securing Kentucky State University accreditation to enhancing the intellectual and physical environment of Kentucky's only publicly funded HBCU, Rufus B. Atwood has helped transform Kentucky State University into what it is now.
Once again, we'd like to welcome you all to today's Rufus B. Atwood Assembly. Next up, we'll have singer Darius Hardy perform "Is There Anybody Here Who Loves My Jesus?" arranged by Undine Smith Moore. Thank you.
Is there anybody here that loves my Jesus? Anybody here that loves my Lord? I want to know, do you love my Jesus? I want to know, do you love my Lord? Is there anybody here that loves my Jesus? Anybody here that loves my Lord? I want to know, do you love my Jesus? I want to know, do you love my Lord? world of wilderness of woe, so let us all to glory go. Is there anybody here that loves my Jesus? Anybody here that loves my Lord? I want to know, do you love my Jesus? I want to know, do you love my Lord? Is there anybody here? Is there anybody here? I want to know, I want to know, I want to know. Do you love my Lord?
Bill Turner was born and raised in a coal mining facility in Lynch, Harlan County, Kentucky. Bill has dedicated his career to demographic and ethnographic studies and programmatic interventions among people of color in the Southern Appalachian region. He co-edited Blacks in Appalachia and was a research associate to the Root author, Alex Haley, who said in 1990, "Bill knows more about black people in the mountains of the South than anyone in the world."
Dr. Turner is the interim director of the Kentucky State University Center for Research on the Eradication of Educational Disparities. The center promotes collaborative research, bringing together leaders in teaching, educational policy, and community stakeholders together to assess, analyze, and remove educational barriers and disparities in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Turner retired as Distinguished Professor of Appalachian Studies and Regional Ambassador at the Bureau College. Before that, he served as Vice President for Diversity at Kentucky, Interim President at Kentucky State University. Bill holds the BS for Kentucky and the doctorates, Department of Sociology and Anthropology, from Notre Dame. He has received the Christian Appalachian Project Person of the Year Award, was recognized as Notre Dame University Distinguished Alumni Exemplar, inducted in 2006 into the Kentucky Civil Rights Hall of Fame, and recognized by the Kentucky Governor as the Dr. Martin Luther King Kentucky Citizen of the Year in 2008.
The Appalachian Study Association honored Bill for a lifetime of service to the Appalachian region. In 2020, the University of North Carolina, Asheville awarded him an honorary doctorate for distinction and prominence, expertise, and dedication to the work for racial justice in Appalachian region. The Harlem Renaissance, Stories of Black Life in Appalachian Coal Towns, Turner memoir will be released by the West Virginia University Press in September in 2011.
Join us in welcoming Dr. Bill Turner. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to thank you very much for that introduction. I want to thank everyone at my beloved Kentucky State University, from Board Chair Elaine Ferris to President M. Christopher Brown and to Provost Yates and to the Institute Director Anthony Adams, Dr. Adams, and on up and down the hill to include faculty, staff, and students. I thank you dearly for this opportunity to join you on this observation of the work of Dr. Atwood. KSU and my personal journey can be framed around a poem written 95 years ago by a Harlem Renaissance poet whose name was Mr. County Cullen. The poem which I commend to you students is titled Heritage by County Cullen. I'll just do the first stanza. It goes like this. What is Africa to me? Copper sun or scarlet sea? Jungle star or jungle track? Strong bronze men or regal black women from whose loins I sprang? When the birds of Eden sang, 3 centuries removed from the scenes my fathers loved, spicy grove and cinnamon tree, what is Africa to me? Now I want to transpose those descriptions of my African heritage to my own background and my heritage, which is rooted in the hills of Eastern Kentucky, specifically in my hometown, Lynch, in Harlan County. And I would ask as County Cullen asks, what is Africa to me? I want to answer, what is KSU to me? I have no Scarlet Sun nor Jungle Star or track, but I did have along those creeks and ridges and railroad tracks where I was raised in East Kentucky. I had a cadre of strong bronze teachers, mostly strong Black women, during my formative years through high school, teachers who sprang from the loins of Kentucky State University. My heritage from the mountains of Southeast Kentucky and the traditions I learned, and my intellectual, my literary, my social, my artistic, my religious and spiritual, and all of my social inheritances were indelibly imprinted in me by Kentucky State University graduates, my teachers, most of whom were influenced directly by KSU's Dr. Rufus Ballard Atwood, a native of Hickman, Kentucky. And he ruled the Hill, has been said earlier, for 3 decades, starting in 1929. Only God knows how widespread is the legacy around this world of Dr. Rufus Atwood. I want to recall very quickly another person who influenced me from Kentucky State, who was a dear compatriot of Dr. Atwood, was Dr. Henry Cheney from Henderson, Kentucky. My principal at the Lynch Colored School, Mr. John Vernon Coleman, was a roommate with Dr. Cheney at Kentucky State between 1932 and 1936. Dr. Cheney served Kentucky State for nearly 50 years. I'd like to even point out that I am a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, primarily because Dr. Coleman, my high school principal, told me, you'd better go and meet Dr. Cheney and become a Sigma, which I really didn't do until I was 40 years old. But I did it right on the KSU campus in the presence of Dr. Cheney. So KSU is deep in my heritage, particularly because Dr. Atwood steeped it so deeply with the obligation to promote social justice and to eliminate social disparities based on race, gender, economic class, sexuality, and other influences that other people. So I'm particularly appreciative and delighted and humbled to join you today to talk just a bit about race matters and the democratic ideal. When President M. Christopher Brown II founded the Institute, as he said earlier, he wanted it to be a living extension of the mission of KSU, with dedicated and a diverse faculty and staff who would deliver on that commitment, and that the Institute would be a convening place, a research center, and a training ground for 3 of the most important elements and topics of our time: race, education, and the democratic ideal. What better time, what more propitious time than now to have this Atwood Institute standing guard right now in this place to shield us from the recent callous and cold-hearted onslaughts to American democracy, which were rooted in race. And we was told by Dr. Adams a moment ago that it was nothing more than an insurrection, a takeover of the nation's capital, when thousands of armed, aggressive intruders on January 6, 2021, tried to cancel out the outcome of our most recent presidential election. And we must all know the historical background, the structured racism behind that cowardly assault on democracy, the white fragility, and the white supremacy that undergirded groups like QAnon and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. There was a lot of anxiety in America over the demographic shift in this country, so that in the foreseeable future, race and democracy will be framed in America around the majority of the population who are now so-called minorities. And make no mistake about it, since January 6th, in fact, starting immediately after the election last November, state legislators across the fluted plain have begun to enact laws that were aimed at changing election procedures, particularly voter access. Nothing is more inviolable and nothing is more sacred in our democracy than the right to vote. But in a backlash to the historic voter turnout, particularly in states that the former president contested, he contested Pennsylvania, which is Philadelphia. He contested Michigan, which was Detroit. He contested Phoenix in Arizona, and he particularly contested and asked to find 12,000 votes so that he could win in metropolitan Atlanta. And that is where the whole sea change turned to Congress. Thank God for Stacey Abrams, because we elected the first Black senator and the first Jewish senator in the state of Georgia. And since that time, Republican-controlled state legislatures across the country have issued a rash of allegations of irregularities, voter frauds, and they've introduced a number of bills to restrict the access of Black people to vote. And so I almost hear them doing what Malcolm X said, and that is they would restrict our right to vote by any means necessary. And they are using any means that you can imagine. And also in reaction to the 2020 election, some states have proposed legislation that will even modify the way that presidential electors are allocated. That is to say, they want to change the electoral college. And we all see what is happening with the vote for the District of Columbia to be part of the American democracy. They don't want that either. So therein lies the problem of race and democracy in this, the first quarter of the 21st century. I hear W.E.B. Du Bois and his problem of the 20th century has now become the problem of the 21st century. His concept of life behind the veil of race and the double consciousness of Black people who always have to see themselves through the eyes of others have become the touchstones for thinking about race in America. In his book, The Souls of Black Folk, Dr. Du Bois talked about civic equality, the education of youth, and all of how that is essential if we are to have progress in this country. The Atwood Institute must carry on in the Commonwealth of Kentucky those conversations that are necessary to address the continuing American dilemma. We have some difficult choices that must be made between the ideal America of the creed of equality and those concrete realities of our country which affects people of color. It is still quite a quandary. It is still quite a predicament. It is still quite a conundrum. It is still a very difficult situation if American democracy is ever to triumph over racism. It is still a vicious cycle in which Black people are discriminated against, and then it's pointed out to the fact that it is their poor performance that is the basis of the discrimination. The way out of this cycle is either to remove systemic racism and improve the circumstances of Black people to disprove these preconceived notions. However, there are many in America who still don't accept the reality of systemic racism. At the center of the continuing American dilemma over race and democracy is the postulate that political and social interaction in the US is shaped by this ideal American creed, this shining example of democracy amongst nations, and this creed which emphasizes equality of opportunity. A lot of people believe that the creed endows all people, whites and Blacks, indigenous people, rich people, poor people, females, males, and immigrants alike, with a common cause that allows us to coexist together. But there's a lot of disparity between the ideal and the real. I commend students to a new book by New York Times award-winning writer Charles Blow. His new book is titled The Devil You Know. My daddy used to say, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. So it might be better, according to Charles Blow, that we deal with some things bad in America than to come out with these new things we see, because the new things seem to be worse than we had before. So Americans are singular in their refusal, for example, to acknowledge the original sins that constitute our problems. We have never yet engaged in the requisite truth-telling that is necessary to recognize white supremacy in America, let alone beginning to reconcile for the harms that have been inflicted via this ideology. America relies on a lot of ahistorical myths where it tells itself to justify the uneven distribution of power and capital and other material resources. If America, for America to exist, people must believe that we have a meritocracy. But the point is whether or not this meritocracy really exists. James Baldwin said the American meritocracy is the biggest lie ever been told. For the very reason that America refuses to face the big lie is a rhyme and a reason why race and democracy are in such vigorous and vibrant and ever-changing flux at the present time. America needs think tanks like the Atwood Institute, a space where scholars and researchers and teachers and students can come together and question the miseducation of everybody in America. So I leave you with the thoughts and advice of another prominent poet from the Harlem Renaissance, Claude McKay. And Claude McKay spoke naked truth about race and democracy. And he spoke to people of color with whom he identified like those with whom I identify, those who have been stripped of their dignity and of their freedom and are in despair and are cornered by violent oppression. Claude McKay, if we must die, if we must lose our right to vote, that's the point. He wrote this, he said, if we must die, let it not be like dogs who are hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, we must join first the work of Stacey Abrams and let us nobly lose our vote. We're just not gonna lose it, so that the precious blood of people like John Lewis and Fannie Lou Hamer will not have been shed in vain. And then even the monsters whom we defy, they will be constrained to honor us. Oh, kinsman, he said, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show ourselves brave. And all that they do, let us stand as one, because what lies before us, except the dreams of our children? Like strong people, we must face this cowardly pack. Though our backs are pressed to the walls, we will always continue to fight back. My friends at Kentucky State University, we need this place called the Atwood Institute, this thinking space now more than ever, if we as a country are to move onward and upward. I thank you so very much for this opportunity. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Bill Turner, for your intelligent and insightful words. I couldn't agree more that the Atwood Institute is very much needed. As we close today's assembly honoring the Atwood Institute's namesake, Dr. Rufus B. Atwood, who served Kentucky State University as president from 1929 to 1962, I would like to remind everyone that his legacy still lives on in the high standards he has set for our great institution. In those high standards of improving educational opportunities and bringing full accreditation in his first 2 years as president, Kentucky State University only keeps improving and is recognized not only for our scholastics, but for what we do for our community. So I'd like to charge everyone to always look towards the future, as our longest serving president, Dr. Rufus B. Atwood, did. Thank you. And also, I would like to introduce Ms. Jessica Imani Edwards. She is going to sing our alma mater.
Hail to our alma mater, dear is her name, and there shall be no other to surpass her fame. Hers is the hand that guides us day after day, and she will stand beside us when we go on our way. May blessings be upon her, shepherd of youth. She holds the seat of honor in a hall of truth. Memories of her shall never fade from our hearts, and we will praise her ever for the love she imparts.